Hi guys, and welcome back to Train Simulator. This time we're just going to do a short run from Romford to Upminster and back with the London Overground Class 315. Unfortunately, because this is just the old Crouch Valley 3 the old Crouch Valley route from UKTS, it doesn't really depict the Romford to Upminster shuttle as it is today. I mean, look at this, it's not even a proper London Overground sign. Anyway, I'll just get this train set up while blabbering on, as I usually seem to do, or rather as I have done in the past. Right. It's curious how the speed, like the dial on the speedometer, pings out and then back to 0 once you initially power the thing up. Okay, DRA's off. Hello. This is 321. Two 321s. That lot will be bound for Southend Victoria, I think. Because the TFL, the Class 345 Adventurers aren't in TS, I've had to use the older 315s instead, which seem to be causing a very poor frame rate. Big surprise. I'm getting rather sick of awful frame rates, to be honest. Right, as for our train, we just need to set the destination screen. That says Upminster, and then the GSMR. Right, our registration code is 2V46. There we go. As for the signal number, I don't think there is one, so I'm just going to wing it. And there goes those other 315s off to Shenfield. In real life, this Romford to Upminster shuttle that we're currently on is run by the Class 710s, or as seemingly everyone else seems to call them, 710s. Hello, sounds like something else is about to speed along. There's more 321s. Excuse me. Just realised I can set the headlights up properly on our train. Right. Oh, it's like kind of like the ScotRail 314, where you've got the same dial to control all the lights instead of having like separate little dials, to one for like headlights, one for marker lights, and one for tail lights. I think that's what you get on the Class 150, if memory serves. Right, it seems that looking forward from this screen, or from this front, or this initial cab window, we just get a acceptable frame rate, I suppose you could say. Okay, where's that door? Oh, wow. The door interlock light on this unit is a lot more subtle than I remember on the likes of the, well, in terms of trains I've recently driven, probably the 3H7. Because I think in those cases, it's like where you've got a blue button, like that one I've got the cursor on there, where you can see where it'll be a very prominent blue light to denote that, or to let you know that the doors are closed. I think they even need to use that when they're running with a guard. Of course, the London Overground, as far as I know, doesn't use guards at all. Come to think of it, the London Underground certainly doesn't use guards either. And I think, from what I gather, the last time that a tube train ran with a guard would have been about, I think it was about 2000, when the last of the 1959 stock was retired. Speaking of older trains, here's what used to run the London to Norwich service before the Class 745s arrived. And that's just the older Class 90 locomotive propelling the Mark IIIs. Stop lagging, please. As I said earlier, I'm getting absolutely sick of these awful frame rates, and it doesn't help when there's no clear indication on how to get the game running smoothly. Yeah, well, consistently smoothly, I might add. There it goes again. Stop doing that. Right, I can hear the sound of another train moving. Unless that's just the oh, that'll still just be from the Class 90. Right. And now we're on the unusual line to Upminster. And some surprisingly loud motors. Which reminds me, the 314s, and well, the 315s at the very least, the way these units are laid out is that the motors are actually in the driving cars instead of like on the class, I don't know, 455, where the motors are only in one of the centre cars. Interesting, because I just remember that the 315s, I'm pretty sure these are older than the 455s, which doesn't really surprise me, because I think the 315s, yeah, their design I think is derived from the 313, except of course the 315 is a 4-car unit that can only run on 25 kilovolt AC overhead wires, while the 313, I was about to say 315 again, that unit is only 3 cars, but it can run on 750 volt DC third rail as well as overhead wires. Although saying that, I'm pretty sure the only 313 that's still got dual voltage capability is Network Rail's 313121. So I think the only 313s still in passenger service, which are Southern's units, they lost their pantographs when they were refurbished for West and East Coastway services. As for this Romford to Upminster line, it's, in my opinion, it definitely is a strange one. To me, it just seems like a lot of effort to go to electrify such a short line. Because last I checked, it's only about 3 miles, and even then, well, given how short the line is, I'm surprised that there's even one intermediate stop, let alone any. Which in this case is, of course, Emerson Park. And according to, I think, one of Jeff Marshall's videos, it's one of, if not the least used station on the whole of the London Overground. And it might seem weird for a line completely separate from the rest of the network to still be part of the Overground. Because if you look on, like, I don't know, perhaps the most modern London Underground map, which, like, features the tube lines, TfL Rail, Croydon Tramlink, and the Overground, it shows like out at the on the far right of the map, so out in the far east, as it were. You see this awkward little orange line that is a fair way off from any other Overground section. And I realise I might be going a bit too fast here, but I can't. Too late to do anything about that, unfortunately. I probably should have stayed on full service the whole time. Anyway, despite that admittedly embarrassing overshoot, here we are at Emerson Park. And a woman that just appeared out of absolutely nowhere. That's not weird at all. What was I just saying? Oh yeah, from what if my research is correct, the reason why the Romford to Upminster line is completely isolated from, well, not completely isolated in terms of like physical track connections, but certainly separated from the rest of the network. Yeah, I already know what to do with that, with the instructions when we get to Upminster. Yeah, so as you just saw back at Romford, the platform that we were departing from, which is platform 1, is on the other side of the station from platforms 4 and 5, which are the ones used by the TfL rail services. And from what I understand, it would be too difficult to incorporate the Overground, or it would be too difficult to improve. If they tried incorporating this Romford to Upminster branch into the TfL rail network, what they'd have to do, or what Network Rail would have to do, would be, or they'd have to either build a big flyover, so that the trains could come off the slow lines and then go over the fast lines and then onto this branch. And the other option would be building a somewhat complicated series of crossovers at the northern end of the station. which wouldn't work because that would result in a lot of congestion because of these Upminster trains getting in the way of the Greater Anglia services out towards like South End Victoria, Braintree, Ipswich, and Norwich. And so I think, well, the other option was to use this branch or add it to the London Underground's District line, because of course Upminster is not only the eastern terminus of the District's line, but also the furthest east that you can possibly go on a tube train. And that didn't work either because the line, this branch line leaves Upminster in the wrong direction for it to be direct to make it, because if it left in the same direction as the... I'm getting really confused just trying to word this properly. I do apologise. And the other thing would be the other thing is that by this time, of course, the Romford to Upminster line would have already been electrified, because I think that it happened in 1986. So there would have been a lot of work, I imagine, to convert the line from standard 25 kilovolt AC overhead wires to this 4-rail system that you can see here. And as indeed, obviously they didn't do that. The other thing is that this platform that we're about to pull into, which is platform 6, oh, by the way, there's D78 stock. That's from the Virtual District line pack. I haven't got the Metropolitan line or the S stock, so I've just used the D78 stock instead for the District line AI. And this platform, as I say, this platform that we're about to pull into is technically a siding. If anything, that's basically what this branch line is. It's just one, 3-mile long siding, and its only connection to the rest of to the outside world, if you will, is at the Romford end. And I think what they do is because obviously only one train can run on this line at any one time, and the service frequency is a very simple once every 30 minutes in each direction. They only need to have one train confined to the line throughout the entire day. And I think it's like early in the morning where they have to bring the unit in from, I think it's Ilford depot. That would make sense from an operational perspective, because Ilford is between Romford, is on the Great Eastern Main Line, and it's between Romford and Stratford. Meaning that if you try going from Romford to Stratford, you somehow go through a magic portal and you end up in a town in the North Island of New Zealand. Obviously, I'm joking. I don't mean the Stratford in New Zealand. I mean the one in East London. Of course, it's not just as you can see with these Class 3H7s, hold on, try to get a screenshot of you before you run off. It's not just the Overground shuttle and the District line that serves Upminster. You also get the other national rail services in the form of C2C. Interestingly, even though it's not necessarily marketed as such by TfL, the Overground is still part of the National Rail network, and well, you can tell because of the fact that the trains still use the standard TOPS designations. It's not like the Underground where you look at this thing and you don't call it with any sort of TOPS number. Well, I suppose you do with the rebuilt ones, like obviously the Class 230s and 484s. And off they go to Ealing Broadway. Have fun. It's quite a long route with a lot of stations, if memory serves. Right. I suppose all I can really think of to do now is I think that running sound I'm hearing is, yeah, it's that it's the D78 stock going about, coming and going. Now there's an incoming train. It's a bit late. Well, yeah, okay, those other 387s have gone rather quickly, and here come another pair. I think these ones have come from Shrewsbury Ness, and they're going back to Fenchurch Street. And they're coming into the platform very slowly. Surely C2C trains, or just any trains in general, certainly in the UK, wouldn't enter the platform this slowly in real life, unless there was some kind of special speed restriction in place. Right, I think all that's left for me to do, at least the only thing I can think of, is to shut down this cab and move to the other end. Okay, well, we can probably deregister, at least, okay, deregistering. Right, now we can get the reverser out. Oh, put the tail lights back on. Yep, we can change ends, I think. What do we need to do at this end? Well, basically the reverse of what we just did. Okay. I imagine they'd probably reset the, redo the GSMR in real life, but... Okay, but I don't think I'll bother for this return trip. Right, yep, destination set for Romford. Let's check to make sure. Indeed it is. What's that noise? I don't know about you, but I thought I could hear another train moving. I see this other train that's come in, I think this one's coming from, I think Ealing Broadway. That's just waiting for, presumably waiting for this one that's right next to our 315 to get out of the way. Anyway, as for us, we are due out of here at 5:25, which is now, more or less. Oh, sorry, it won't let us leave. I think because of the way it's set up in terms of how long it'll keep the doors open for, it won't let us leave for at least another 30 seconds, well, possibly 20 seconds at this point. And there go the other 387s again. I've had to use the 387s to represent the C2C services because there's no 357 in Train Simulator. Right, now we can go. In all honesty, I'm impressed that we've actually got moving, because I thought it would end up glitching and we already get stuck. Well, I suppose it's good that, as I say, it's good that we've actually got moving, so now I guess all we've got to do is just go back to Romford. Yeah, there's not many other services I can think of where you can drive, where you can go for a run in an EMU on overhead wires and have the game constantly lag without explanation, and then be able to complete the round trip in ideally less than half an hour. And one thing I found, it was either yesterday or this morning, when I was getting the notes to make this scenario, I found that the London Overground doesn't use 315s anymore. And I think all the ex-Overground 315s, I think they all got scrapped, but don't quote me on that. I do know that I think TfL Rail still use only about 8 315s, which are just they only use them on peak hour services. So I think the vast majority of the time they use the more modern 345s instead. So if any, and frankly I highly doubt we'll ever get Ventra units in Train Simulator. Or any more of the really modern units, besides like the excuse me, besides the like the class 800 through to 803 units, and I remember I think GU Studios is making the class 745 and 755, which makes sense for them to be included in the same pack, because they're the same. Those units, basically, they're Stadler Flirt trains, I believe, and they've got the same, more or less the same body shell as each other. But the 745s, I believe those are like 10 or 12 car units, and they're purely electric. Whereas the 755s, they are either 3 or 4 car units, and they are electro diesels. Although from what I can tell, or at least from what I've seen a lot of real life footage, the 755s seem to spend a lot of their time, or certainly most of their time, running in diesel mode on a lot of Greater Anglia's regional services. One example, I suppose, could be the branch line from Marks Tay to Sudbury. And one thing's for sure is that when the 755 is released from TS, I probably will pick it up, because I'm thinking I'll use it for scenarios on the Wherry lines, like between Ipswich and excuse me, between Ipswich and Felixstowe, and of course, as I just mentioned, between Marks Tay and Sudbury. Or just for a joke, you could use the 755 on the Southend Pier Railway. And although, come to think of it, I've done something a bit more absurd than using a 755 on Southend Pier. Because that stupid video I did the other day, or the other week I suppose, called Nonsense Trains, where, well, one of the scenes involved running a Union Pacific U50, so an absolutely massive US diesel locomotive, on the Southend Pier Railway, hauling old Stroudley coaches from the London, Brighton and South Coast Railway, and then 2 randomly selected British steamers, which were a 9F and a little 040 from the Furness Railway. If anything, you'll probably need to see the video just to really see how ridiculous the whole idea was. Although, if anything, that's kind of the tip of the iceberg in terms of what silly concept to put together for that video. Right, now that we're done with that stop at Emerson Park, all that's left is to continue on to Romford. What else was I about to say? So I seem to forget. I always find myself forgetting what I was just saying. Well, not always, but it seems to happen more often than I would like. Incidentally, earlier this morning, I think I was watching one of Jeff Marshall's videos where he was talking about Emerson Park and mentioning how it was the least used overground station. And during that video, well, before he actually got to Emerson Park, he showed himself exploring that area, trying to look for all the different foot crossings on the line. And I think he found at least 4 of them, which is curious because throughout this whole run we've done today, I haven't seen any. Well, I don't recall seeing any foot crossings at all. So, yeah. So, in that sense, it's obviously not. Well, this is certainly not a 100% accurate recreation of the line, but it's as far as I know, it's the only recreation of the Romford to Upminster line we've got in Train Simulator, since for whatever reason Dovetail decided to leave it out on their Great Eastern Main Line London to Ipswich route, which, if anything, it's the amount of missed opportunities on that route are just as prevalent as the extremely as its tendency to crash. So historically, like throughout the years and all the times I've tried going on the Great Eastern Main Line London, or driving on that London to Ipswich route, it seems to have a disturbingly high tendency to crash. Like, it is, in other words, it is a very unstable route. And I think even today it's still pretty bad. I think even with the 64-bit edition, it seems like that. I'm not surprised in the slightest that the 64-bit even that massive upgrade hasn't really stopped certain routes from crashing disturbingly often. I think yeah, there's a lot of lines missed off from that DTG route. Like they didn't include they didn't include Shenfield to Southminster and Southend Victoria, nor did they include Marks Tay to Sudbury. And I think another one that, well, I think even this Crouch Valley route doesn't have is the branch off of Stratford going up through Meridian Water and I think onto Bishop Stortford. And yeah, there's more 315s. Once again coming from Shenfield into Liverpool Street. Of course, you don't get any of the Lee Valley lines in the Train Simulator either. So I think that, yeah, that would mean that you don't really have that many places to use like these Overground 315s. I guess even the 317s. Although I don't remember if AP's Class 317 pack actually includes any Overground liveries. If it does, then it would probably be useful on this funny little branch that we've been looking at today. Right, and in amongst yet more constant and rather infuriating lag, we're on this trundling into Romford. As I get rudely interrupted by more lag. Come on! A trio of 321s. This bloody lag has just got to stop. Absolutely sick of it. Doesn't help that it's quite inconsistent as well. Stop it. Always has to be something to ruin it. That's what I've found. Just realised I'm actually recording this video on a Sunday, and I haven't checked real-time trains, or to confirm this, but I'm just thinking whether or not wondering whether or not this Romford to Upminster shuttle also runs on Sundays. So what's interesting about this service is, as I said earlier, it's the frequency of it does not change at all throughout the day, regardless of whether or not the rest of the nearby lines are in the evening or like morning or evening peak. And I think the only reason why it can't be any more frequent than every 30 minutes in each direction is because of the limited capacity of the line. And it's like the Onehunga branch in Auckland, where that's a service that it's not really a self-contained shuttle because the Onehunga services go right into the centre of Auckland and terminate at Britomart Station. But the reason why that service can't be any more frequent than every 30 minutes is for the same reason as this line, because the Onehunga branch is single track throughout with no crossing loops. And just now that we're back at Romford, there's not really a lot else that I can think of to say, so I guess for now I better just say thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this run with the Class 315, and I'll see you in the next video. Alright, take care everyone. When are we ever going to get the Class 507, 508 and the Merseyrail route in this game?